Hi, I'm Cathy McBreen, president of Millionaire Corner, and we are delighted to have here today Luke Knecht, one of the foremost leading fixed income portfolio managers in the country. Luke, who you will meet in a moment, currently works as a partner at Dearborn Partners in Chicago, Illinois, which is a SEC registered investment manager. Prior to that, he worked at Dresner RCM Global Investments, and prior to that, he was the chief investment officer at Harris Investment Management. Hello, Luke. We're glad that you're here.
Thank you. I'm pleased to be here, Cathy.
So talk a little bit about the interest rate environment today as opposed to historically, as well as what's happening in the last few weeks even, as the whole discussion about what Chairman Bernanke is thinking about doing with changing the quantitative easing, sort of like a historical perspective of like what's happened, how we are where we are now, and what should we be thinking about the next few months?
You know, I was thinking on my way to meet you this morning how many different Federal Reserve chairmen my career has spanned, and I think I'm up to 6. And that's a very, very tough job. It's just watching them testify in front of Congress. I don't envy them at all. We've come from an environment. If some of your listeners, viewers today, think back to the late 70s, early 80s, there were very high interest rates. Inflation was a real threat. And part of that was demographic. There was a huge bunch of baby boomers coming along and buying houses and refrigerators and cars, borrowing money. And part of it was the conduct of bad policy in the early 70s, the Lyndon Johnson era, guns and butter and printing money. So we had kind of a perfect storm that caused prices to rise pretty rapidly, and that's how we got to 15.75% on Treasury bonds in 1981. Was a great loss of confidence in the U.S. to control its inflation. Well, enter Paul Volcker, who was a very effective chairman of the Federal Reserve, who broke the back of inflation, who was a great public servant, and interest rates began a 30-year decline to the lows that were ultimately reached for the 10-year Treasury of, I think, 1.65% within the past 4 months. And that's terrific. It means that people were willing and able to lend money at very low rates because inflation was very low. In fact, TIPS, Treasury Inflation Protected Securities, which the government began issuing a number of years ago, and are supposed to reflect the real yield that investors earn, got to a negative yield of 70 basis points, 80 basis points. So people were willing to lend their money to the government at a negative real return. You lend $1, you get back 99.6.
So like paying taxes.
It's kind of like paying taxes for the privilege of having your money be safe and secure in the midst of the turmoil. So part of the reason rates came down was inflation came down. Part of the reason rates came down was there was, in essence, more supply of savings than there was demand for savings. There was a deleveraging occurring. And as consumers were deleveraging their balance sheets, people were either paying off or getting smaller mortgages. Banks were being more stringent in their underwriting of loans. So that's part of the equation. And then part of it was a safety play, that in light of all the concerns and fears people had about what was going on with the Arab Spring and the problems in the economies of Europe, where can I put my money where I know I'm going to get it back? And it became a return of principal, not return on principal question. So that pushed U.S. rates down. And then finally, the Fed, in an effort to promote and spur growth, bought tremendous quantities of securities. And again, demand for the securities, the Fed buying them versus supply, which also was rising, but that helped to push rates down quite a bit.
Thanks again, Luke, and thanks for watching Millionaire Corner.